All right, I put up the standards that go with the measurement bundle card. We're only using the one bundle card because there are so many standards on that one. If you make sure you're on page 53 in your vertical alignment book. The first thing we're going to look at is what the students would need to know in order to begin on those standards. So we need to look at the prerequisite knowledge and skills for our unit planner.
Okay, so they would have to know, be able to order objects in order by length. So they would need to recognize the short, a little longer one, and the longer one.
And then in order to measure the length of an object by selecting and using appropriate tools, they need to know what those tools are. So they need to be at least have an introduction to ruler, yardstick,
Tape measure.
2MD.3 is estimate lengths using units of inches, feet, centimeters, and meters. So they would need to know what it means to estimate. So they would have to have those estimation skills.
Prior knowledge of estimation.
Uh-huh.
And maybe prior knowledge of the metric system. Here, the vocabulary, centimeters, meter.
I'm gonna add that over to keywords.
And then under those keywords, I would probably go ahead and do inches, feet, centimeters, and meters. And if you look at 2.MD.2, measure the length of an object twice using length units of different lengths for the two measurements. Describe how the two measurements relate to the size of the unit chosen. Measure to determine how much larger one object is than another, expressing the length difference in terms of the standard length unit.
So I'm not sure there's gonna be a prerequisite knowledge other than what,
If we do all these standards bundled together in a unit.
if you build on each one like the progression shows.
Okay.
And they should be able to express what unit they're using.
So then, 2MD.5, use addition and subtraction in 100 to solve word problems involving lengths that are given in the same units by using drawings and equations with a symbol for the unknown number to represent the problem. So they need those addition and subtraction skills. And then we also need to make sure.
What about the steps of a word problem? Solving the word problem.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Strategies, word problem strategies. And then at 2MD9, they'll need to know how to read a line plot or be familiar with a line plot.
That would come over to the connections of social studies with line plots.
Where it says equations with a symbol for the unknown number to represent the problem, they need to know how to do that. Kind of that algebraic
Missing
thinking,
addend.
the missing addend piece, which is covered in first grade. But if they didn't master that in first grade, then they need to make sure that they understand missing addend.
So put that underneath prerequisite.
Yes.
Okay, so then the keywords and verb phrases. Is there anything else we need to add in there as far
Are they
as?
familiar with the words line plot? Does that need to be included with keywords also?
Yeah.
What about measurement in general?
Yes, definitely.
I mean, even estimate. I think some of those things can,
But these are words we want to make sure stay with the progression down from where they've come from to where they're heading grade level wise.
absolutely.
I'm looking at the connections to other subjects. Can you think of ways that we can pull this in with science and social studies?
We could pull the measurement into science as far as weather, inches of snow, inches of rain,
Okay.
precipitation.
And then when we do forces of motion, we could also do it then, because they could measure how far an object travels. Yeah. And we could have them do that in inches or feet or centimeters. Can you tie this into mapping at all in social studies, or?
You do eventually,
Yeah.
when you use a scale and look at the scale.
And scale's not necessarily part of our standards at this point, but we
Right.
can, I mean, we've introduced the scale, so it's something that we can introduce them to. And
At least make them
continue-
familiar with the
familiarize
scale.
them with that.
Not so much being able to measure it, but knowing that this is the scale, it's typically done in inches.
Yeah, so you just
Absolutely.
make that connection with them. I think that would be good.
I'll put a connection, that way we know that we're not.
Going.
We can always come back if we think of something that's
I think the main thing with this task is using hands-on manipulatives, different objects throughout the classroom,
making it real
objects from
world.
home, yeah.
So then down there are resources. We want to make sure we have, I know we all have rulers and measuring tapes, but do we have meter sticks?
Do you think there should be a common list, not necessarily right now, but a common list of what one class measures versus the other class? So like if one day you're measuring your desk, they're all measuring
They're all
their desk.
measuring desks.
If they're measuring their backpacks, they're all measuring their backpacks.
Yes,
Probably
because that'll
a good
help us in
idea.
intervention too,
Mhm.
to have that
We
common.
can tie in that similarities and differences piece that we're working on too with all this.
Mhm. That's a good point.
Well, and I think when we talk about the non-standard units, making sure that whatever we use is consistent as well.
I know last year I used a lot of my Unifix cubes for that non-standard unit with measurement for the
Mhm.
students.
Paper clips.
Mhm.
Those are the two big things that we used.
I did hear Jill mention similarities and differences. That could tie into the language arts of the Venn diagrams, using similarities and differences, how you do it within a text versus how you do it with math and making those connections.
So we could add that up there to connections. That's a good idea. And then this one's gonna have type 1, type 2, and type 3. So we're gonna need to do all three types of tasks.